Hello MotoGP fans, welcome back to ZNGP Today. Marc Marquez has effectively waved the white flag on his 2024 MotoGP title hopes following a tough Indonesian Grand Prix. Despite being mathematically still in contention, Marquez has admitted that the championship is now a two-horse race between Jorge Martin and Francesco Bagnaia. Here's the latest on Marquez's thoughts as he prepares for the next race in Japan. As the 2024 MotoGP season reaches its final stretch, the championship battle appears to be narrowing down to a duel between Jorge Martin and reigning champion Francesco Bagnaia. Both riders are leading the standings as the championship heads to Japan, but questions remain about whether Marc Marquez and Enea Bastianini still have a shot. Let's hear from the title contenders themselves. As the 2024 MotoGP season heats up, Francesco Bagnaia faces a 21-point gap to current leader Jorge Martin, with 5 rounds left to fight for the title. Bagnaia, a two-time world champion, believes that he has an advantage on 3 of the upcoming tracks. However, Jorge Martin has been in commanding form, leaving many to wonder if Bagnaia can close the gap before the season ends. Let's dive into what both riders had to say ahead of the Japanese Grand Prix. Don't forget to click subscribe button and the bell icon for MotoGP news update. After a promising start to the season, Marc Marquez's 2024 MotoGP title ambitions took a major hit during the Indonesian Grand Prix. Heading into the race, Marquez and fellow Ducati rider Enea Bastianini were within striking distance of the championship lead, sitting 50 and 53 points behind Jorge Martin, respectively. However, their hopes were dealt a blow in Mandalika when Marquez suffered a spectacular engine failure, and Bastianini crashed out of third place. With both riders failing to score any points, Marquez has now fallen 75 points behind Martin, and Bastianini sits 78 points adrift. Speaking ahead of the Japanese GP, Marquez acknowledged that their title chances are all but gone. "We lost many points there, and it's game over because it's too far to close the gap." Quote from Marc Marquez. Despite the setback, Marquez was quick to point out that the championship race isn't over for everyone. He believes the fight is now between the two frontrunners, Jorge Martin and reigning champion Francesco Bagnaia. Both riders have shown strong form in recent races, and Marquez expects the title fight to come down to the wire between them. "I think it's head-to-head between both of them, especially they are a bit faster than the others." For Marquez, the focus now shifts away from the title and toward finishing the season on a high note. After securing a win at the Aragon GP earlier in the year, Marquez had already stated that his personal goals for the 2024 season had largely been achieved. Improving consistency in qualifying and avoiding further crashes are his key priorities as the season enters its final stages. As MotoGP heads to the Japanese Grand Prix at Motegi, Marquez is aiming to refine his performance in the remaining rounds. With 3 consecutive Q2 crashes affecting his qualifying results, Marquez is determined to regain his form and challenge for podiums in the closing stages of the season. "I will try to finish the season in a good way, trying to find that consistency and trying to improve my weak points. Let's see if we can fight for the podium." Meanwhile, Bastianini remains slightly more optimistic, noting that while the gap to the championship leaders has widened, it is still not mathematically impossible for him to catch up. However, with just 5 rounds left, the pressure is mounting on the Italian rider. As Marc Marquez and Enea Bastianini set their sights on the upcoming Japanese GP, their hopes for a MotoGP championship in 2024 have all but faded. With Jorge Martin and Francesco Bagnaia locked in a tight battle for the crown, all eyes are now on who will emerge victorious in the season's final stages. Following a dramatic weekend at the Indonesian Grand Prix, where Marc Marquez and Enea Bastianini suffered setbacks, the focus has shifted to the top 2 riders in the championship, Jorge Martin and Francesco Bagnaia. With just 21 points separating them, Martin acknowledged that while Marquez and Bastianini remain in the hunt, the fight is realistically down to him and Bagnaia. "It's been a long time since I think that it'll be Pecco and me for the title. There's still a chance for them, Marquez and Bastianini, but I feel it's more about Pecco and me now. Quote from Jorge Martin. Martin, who leads the standings after Mandalika, reflected on the competitiveness of this season. With only 5 rounds remaining, both he and Bagnaia are keenly aware of how easily the championship landscape can shift, given the high number of non-scores between them. Bagnaia, who is chasing his second consecutive MotoGP crown after a dramatic finale against Martin last season, shares a similar viewpoint. Although he acknowledges that Marquez and Bastianini could theoretically still mount a comeback, Bagnaia believes that the two frontrunners have been the most consistent performers since mid-season. From halfway through the season, we, Jorge and I, are the two that are leading the races, leading the sessions. But I will consider them, Marquez and Bastianini, until mathematically it will be impossible. Bagnaia's words echoed the sentiment that the season remains unpredictable, with both he and Martin experiencing multiple crashes and setbacks throughout the year. Despite the lead they've established, both riders know that mistakes can happen, and the title fight could take unexpected turns before the final round in Valencia. As for Marquez and Bastianini, their task has become significantly more difficult after the events in Mandalika. With 185 points still available in the remaining 5 races, they would need both Martin and Bagnaia to experience serious misfortune in order to climb back into contention. While the odds may be slim, stranger things have happened in MotoGP, especially in a season marked by frequent mistakes and crashes among the top riders. The 2024 MotoGP season has delivered plenty of drama, and as the championship heads into its final rounds, all eyes are on Jorge Martin and Francesco Bagnaia. While Marc Marquez and Enea Bastianini have yet to be ruled out, the stage is set for a showdown between the top 2 riders. Will Martin hold on to his lead, or can Bagnaia make a late charge for back-to-back titles? Stay tuned as the championship heads to Japan this weekend. Bagnaia remains optimistic as the MotoGP circus heads to Motegi. With several tracks in the final rounds playing to his strengths, the Italian rider sees a chance to claw back the points deficit. He highlighted the circuits where he feels most confident. We have 3 tracks where we are very strong: Motegi, Thailand, and Malaysia. Australia is where Jorge is very strong, but we'll try to be better than him where we can. Quote from Francesco Bagnaia. Bagnaia, coming off a challenging weekend at Mandalika, managed to close the gap to Martin by 3 points despite the Spaniard's Grand Prix win. The Ducati rider takes that as a positive, given how well Mandalika suited Martin. Jorge Martin, on the other hand, is cautious about claims that he's now in a position to control the championship. Despite his lead, Martin doesn't believe it's time to ease up, especially with unpredictable weather likely to play a role in upcoming races. There's no sense in starting to think about controlling things. I think it's more about doing a good job and taking points in every situation. Quote from Jorge Martin. Martin, who dominated last season's races at Motegi under both dry and wet conditions, acknowledges that the unpredictability of the weather could once again play a major role. For Martin, it's about focusing on each race individually rather than getting distracted by the championship standings. Both riders are keenly aware that each remaining race could be a turning point. Bagnaia sees Motegi, with its numerous braking points and acceleration zones, as a track that suits his riding style, drawing confidence from his double victory at Austria's Red Bull Ring earlier this season. However, Martin, who won both races at Motegi last year, will be a formidable rival. Motegi is a track that suits my style better than Mandalika. I think our performance could be very good, and we can start gaining more points on Jorge. Quote from Bagnaia. As for Martin, he's preparing for any scenario, especially given the uncertainty surrounding weather conditions. The weather forecast is quite unpredictable, so it will be difficult and challenging. I'll give my best, but let's see. Quote from Martin. Both riders know the importance of balancing risk and reward, especially with flag-to-flag races, which may come into play if rain disrupts any of the remaining rounds. With just 5 races left, the 2024 MotoGP Championship is far from decided. While Francesco Bagnaia believes he has the edge on certain tracks, Jorge Martin continues to focus on taking points wherever he can. The next few rounds will be crucial as the battle for the title heads into its most critical phase. Free practice kicks off at Motegi on Friday morning, and the showdown between these two top contenders is set to continue. Thanks for watching ZNGP Today, and this is your MotoGP news update. See you in the next video.